Welcome back to the FinTech Report. Today we'll be looking at a video detailing why an ex-Microsoft engineer got 0 offers after 200.
Two company they applied to 200 companies, got 10 interviews scheduled, and all 10 rejected. They applied to 200 companies, got 10 interviews scheduled, and all.
Up on
They applied to 200 companies, got 10 interviews scheduled, and all 10 rejected.
Most people think getting Microsoft on your resume means you're set for life. But in today's tech market, even ex-big tech engineers are getting humbled.
Extremely hard to land a job in Silicon Valley. I thought like Silicon Valley is the land of opportunity, but it was absolutely opposite. No one is coding with hand. They're using Cloud Code or agentic terminals to code. The core skill now, which is engineering, scaling big systems, scaling from 1,000 users to 10,000 users.
So the question is not, should you still learn a code? The question is, what should you learn now so you don't become replaceable?
Learning to code is still worth it, but just learning to code is 100% not worth it.
Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a very special guest, Hanor. We'll talk about Hanor's journey from India to doing college in the US, to working at Microsoft, to joining a startup, and all the insights and learnings he's gleaned in between, as well as his thoughts on the current status of the job market, AI, all that fun stuff. So let's get into it. But first, I'm sure a lot of people here are curious, how did you get into Microsoft? What are some of the resources that you used?
That's an interesting question. So for me, Microsoft was really hard. I applied like 6 times, interviewed 6 times, and I failed every single time because I was never good at lead code. And I hated doing lead code problems. I hated sitting down and struggling with lead code problems. But what happened, lead code came to our campus, even though I did not go to a top 100 school, like other friends who have worked at Microsoft with me. But I still got the opportunity that Microsoft came to my campus, but I could not clear the interview. I did get the interview, but I could not clear. So first time it was on campus when Microsoft was coming for internship, I got rejected. Second time again, internship, I did interview, got rejected. Third time, it was for full time, and I got rejected, but I didn't give up. So I started working at a company called NCR, which was right near Georgia Tech and Georgia State University. So I worked for NCR for 2 years. So while working for NCR 2 years, Microsoft DM, and I did not want to work there at the time.
Oh.
I was really happy at NCR, but Microsoft was creating a new campus in Atlanta.
Oh.
So I was like, let's give a shot. Let's see where it goes. And then it suddenly I got lucky that 2022 was the year when job market was at the peak, because the amount of overhiring and hiring that happened in 2022 was at the peak, and with just lead code basic and medium skills, and that's the kind of questions they ask, basic medium, no hard question, no dynamic programming, I was able to nail the interview and get a job, and that's how I got it.
Nice. And how was your experience working at Microsoft? What were your most favorite and least favorite parts?
First of all, when I was actually not even wanted to go there, first would be the pay, because my pay actually increased to double. I was making 80 to 100K a year at NCR, and it almost doubled the first year living in Atlanta. And that made me really happy. Everyone have subconscious out there, money, a big factor why they get into tech industry. And number 2 would be, I think the work was really interesting. I was coming from a mobile app development expertise. So I wanted to do mobile app development. And this time I got to work on an app that's used by 10 million plus users. That's called Microsoft Defender. So that was really fun, getting my mobile app development skills brushed up, iOS development, Android development. And that was one of my favorite parts.
It seems like you had a wonderful time working at Microsoft. why did you end up leaving?
So I left like after 3 years of working there, just like you left after 4.5, but I left a bit faster because we living in a wave of AI where like people are happier leaving college, leaving their job and working in a AI startup than ever before. This is a really unconventional path most people are taking. Like any college campus you visit, the cloud that people used to get of working at big five companies like Microsoft, Google, people used to be like, wow. But now that wow comes only when you work at like a big AI lab like Anthropic, OpenAI, or you work on a cool startup. And that's the wave I wanted to get. I wanted to be the cool guy and I wanted to see how it's like being a cool guy. And I wanted to work on the latest technologies, which aren't brushed up yet, but will become the future of tomorrow. So by working for an AI startup, like the startup I just joined, HydraDB, I'm getting to feel the wave and I'm actually like enjoying it very much because I started to hate engineering as well. Because I think engineering has like started to like kill my brain a lot because it's a struggle. When you do engineering, you can basically do nothing the whole day. In the morning, I wake up, I think about bugs and problems I'm facing. In the night, and during my shower, during my sleep,
Feel
my
that so
whole
much.
attention, whole day, whole week is gone towards engineering. So that's why I wanted to do something less intensive that can give me a breathing room to focus on my passion. After working full time at Microsoft, I took 8 months of gap. I wanted to sharpen my axe before using it. So I was sharpening my skills by taking a gap of 8 months, quitting full time, traveling to cool countries like China, Vietnam, Japan, Korea, India, etc. I lived there for a couple months and I wanted to have breathing room. And then finally work on something I really enjoy, that is a DevRel role, which is not as intensive as engineering.
It's so great that you took that break. To be honest, as someone who the last time I took more than a 2 week break was junior year of college, like third year of college.
Really?
I think it's something that I am long overdue for, to be honest. But yeah, I think there's so much to be said for just like resetting and like following
Just
your
2
passion.
weeks.
Yeah.
So
Or-
like you've been working for like 4.5 years Google and now like almost 6 years of full-time experience
yeah.
with no breaks.
Okay, my current company forces us to take 2 weeks off for winter break, but besides that, like the last like voluntary time I took off was third year of college, which was like 7 years ago at this point.
Do you think having the need of room to sharpen the axe
I
before
like to-
using it?
I think I should learn from you. I personally think that it's. I was thinking like, oh, I could like multitask and sharpen while working, but I feel like sometimes it does get a lot, and sometimes everyone, including me, burns out. So I think after talking with you and with a lot of friends, maybe I'll do that at some point.
We think it's very interesting the fact that he is found somewhat enjoyment in working, in companies that are out of the big tech firms. And this is something that we believe is going to proliferate, where people are going to essentially choose smaller AI startups to work at, right? And that's simply because of the flexibility. But not only that as well, more and more new roles that have basically not been defined yet. This is like the first time that they are ever being titled, right? For example, he's in a DevRel role, we believe, which was a development relations. This isn't a traditional role that you would have heard before. It's something very new, right? And as a result, many people are going to be turning to AI startups or new tech startups because they are going to more so require the inclusion of human beings. You will find that a lot of companies right now that are using AI are finding that AI fails in certain aspects. So you will need almost like a human prevention officer, right, to prevent mistakes being made from AI. Maybe it's not processing stuff correctly. Maybe you've made an application and it keeps turning you down, or you're trying to upload a document and it keeps turning it down, keeps turning it down until the point where you need to escalate this, right? It needs to be escalated to what? To a human being now that can at least use not just common sense, but empathy, all right? This is something AI will likely lack because it would always function within a rigid system. It must contain this information for it to be processed. whereas human beings are going to need to override these decisions in order to ensure that documents that may seem as though they're not valid are actually being processed. Right, that's just an example of what's happening, for example, in the gig economy, where you work in certain jobs and you're trying to apply and your application is not basically getting put through. This is happening for many people that will say that they're, like this guy said he was putting in a lot of applications, right? He was applying for a lot of jobs and was getting turned down. A lot of these companies are using AI. They are essentially using AI to weed out those CVs that are deemed not worthy. But AI is using a certain metric to measure these that most likely are wrong. It's incorrect. So more and more you'll find companies going to focusing on hiring human beings that can help correct AI, to help steer AI in the right direction. They're not ever going to stop AI. That kind of worm has been opened. It's not going to revert back. We have to march forward now. AI is going to be part of, our work lives for forever now. But one thing people are starting to realize is a lot of companies that let go of a lot of human beings, thinking that AI was going to help them save money, are realizing mistakes are being made. Mistakes are being made by the AI. So as a result, some of these companies that let go thousands of human beings actually had to hire back human beings. And this is some of the opportunities people aren't talking about. All you ever hear is the dread and the negatives that AI is bringing about. People don't realize because AI is not up to scratch yet, is there's going to be some faults there. Human beings are now being hired back, but not only are they being hired, they're not being hired back to do their old roles. They're being hired back to work alongside AI. And that's what the future essentially holds. The future holds people being in positions that oversee AI. Okay, AI does the dirty work and the hard work. Okay, a human being now has to run through the decisions, right, being made by the AI, or the work, let's just say, being made by the AI, and they have final decision making on certain aspects, certain mistakes that are being made. For example, certain applications that are being rejected that shouldn't be rejected because the AI is using a rigid system to measure these. A human being will have to now do that job. So this type of stuff you're hearing, from these two. They're now talking about stuff that more so trivial because it's more to do with taking holidays and so forth. But we shall continue and see what else we can glean from this interview.
not this year, maybe sometime. Going back to what you said, you are currently at a startup. How does that compare with your life at Microsoft in terms of work-life balance, perks, like other responsibilities?
So at Microsoft, things and responsibilities beyond when you're on call, it was measured on a weekly basis. You meet your manager on a weekly basis, and it's measured if you're exceeding, meeting, or not meeting the expectations that manager has set out. But at a startup, it's not measured on a weekly basis, it's measured on a daily basis. So if there are goals you discuss in the morning that, hey, you need to do these 5 things or sometimes 10 things or 3 things, you have to push yourself to meet them. And there's more pressure to achieving them because you have a lot more ownership and you pretty much own end to end of whatever you're working on. For example, let's say I'm owning a hackathon that I'm organizing this weekend. It's called Build Matcha, Build Code. You build your own matcha, build your own code. So I own promoting, marketing, and planning the hackathon, being innovative with it, choosing the companies to partner with, having constant meetings with them, figuring out the supplies and all the dynamics you have to own.
So you're wearing all the hats.
Yeah. And now since all the pressure is on me to have it possible this Saturday, I have to work. Not working is not an option because deadline is this Saturday. Wow. So the pressure is higher, but since it's more fulfilling work, because I think I was a bit fed up of engineering, and that's why I enjoyed way more. I'm having a more fulfilling day, I'll say.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely a change, but a good one.
100%.
You switched jobs in one of the toughest job markets we've seen, and you moved to Silicon Valley. How hard was it to do so?
I thought it would be easier, but I didn't know that it's extremely hard to land a job in Silicon Valley. I thought like Silicon Valley is the land of opportunities. It'll be extremely easy, but it was absolutely opposite. It was extremely hard. I left Microsoft like 8 months ago. I moved here. I kept on applying online to a bunch of companies. I applied to 200 companies, got 10 interviews scheduled, and all 10 rejected. And most of the reason that I got rejected was that I applied first for engineering roles, and I figured out that, oh, by doing 100 lead code problems today, I would be able to ace them. But no, the problems they ask are very unstandardized. They're not standardized. So think about big tech when you applied for Microsoft, Google, like Meta, etc. Interview processes standardized. Like, they're gonna ask you like lead code hard, medium. But when you apply for a startup, they can ask you anything. They can ask you hash map collision strategy, which I had completely forgotten. I studied in college and now completely forgot about it. Or they can ask you about, or do a system design of Bitly and do all the mathematics that's needed so there are no collisions in that, like, bunch of links you create. So these tough problems require a lot of in-depth knowledge. And I realized that I needed like at least 1 month more to prepare, like reading the system design book, doing 100 more mock interviews because the intensity of the job market is at the peak. I see Reddit blogs every day that people are struggling to find jobs even 8 months after trying and interviewing. Then I realized, hold on, let's try DevRel. Maybe engineering is not for me. I might think about engineering later. So then with DevRel, you don't need to do engineering. You need to know engineering basics, but not need to do it. And that's why I pursued it and got a work trial, not an interview, and got it pretty easily. And I was considering another DevRel company. I won't name it here. It was a big tech. Right now, I wanted to work for a startup, so I was just prioritizing startups.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like DevRel is like the perfect fit for you.
Both like a little bit of development experience you need and a little bit of like, marketing experience. And it's really fun. It's a good hybrid approach.
Yeah, that's so.
Well, he mentioned, which was quite surprising for us, he mentioned that, when he left Microsoft to go into the startup, it was actually more pressure, obviously, because he's now having to manage, you could say, his own event. Let's just call it an event, where he's in charge of everything, which is interesting. I mean, it makes absolute sense, right? It makes absolute sense in terms of if you're the one having to oversee everything and ensure that the event is everything goes according to plan, which makes sense. But at the same time, we're thinking of just how, although it was more pressure, it's probably the pressure is not coming. The pressure is probably more so not coming from higher up, but because this has to be delivered and there's other people waiting, on you to confirm that yep, everything is a go. We can now get this event underway. Whereas the pressure when you're working at a top firm is you must perform. That makes sense. Not that you don't have to perform in a smaller company, like a startup, like they said, but the pressure is a lot more. And I think if you don't perform in a higher startup, you're going to be judged, right? There's going to be people that are going to look down on what you're doing. Well, look upon what you're doing, and if you're not successful, going to look down upon you, right? And you're going to have to maybe face some consequences. But it was interesting to hear that he said that there's more pressure in the startup. But I think what was more interesting was the fact that it seemed like he enjoyed that pressure, which is probably the massive difference, because in the big tech company, which was Microsoft, struggled, right? And he struggled mainly because it sounds as though he just wasn't, engineering probably was something that he became tiresome of. It wasn't a thing that he wanted to really do anymore. Whereas in this instance, this is something that he's saying he enjoys because it's got a mixture of, as long as you have understand the fundamentals within, the dev space. If you're now bringing in like marketing and so forth, it's a blend. I'm guessing he has to be more personable, and clearly you can see this young man is a very personable he's a very personable character. So it is probably a good mix for him. But these are conversations that really need to be heeded, right, by those that are maybe trying to get into a space where AI can easily take over and essentially just do the jobs which humans are doing, because AI doesn't struggle this much. As much as where he was saying how, there's going to be a lot of tests that you have to do, maybe to get into a specific company, having to do this test here and that test here, trying to figure out stuff as an engineer. When you're going for these interviews, AI doesn't have to do any of this. AI is just naturally going to be able to compute stuff at record speeds. Whereas AI is probably going to struggle more when it's something to do with human interaction, right? And that's where the relations bit that he works in helps him, because that's something AI won't be able to do, is relate to humans in a way where we won't get frustrated when we're dealing with AI. Example being on trying to call up a company and dealing with an AI automated system. It's just not listening to you. It's restricting your options because it's been told to stay in this specific box, and you're trying to ask a completely different question up until the point that where it probably has to escalate it, right? So these are areas in which AI cannot perform. So I think people in general now need to start looking at alternative roles that now fit not just their is the word intelligence, but also something that would appeal to their human and ability to relate side. Because applying for the typical jobs, the traditional ways and so forth, is probably not. It's not even probably. It is not. It's more of a waste of your time nowadays. And you have to start looking for these alternatives. What we would say is that there are a lot of you could say job boards that are posting these type of jobs. These jobs that are not traditional jobs, not traditional positions, not traditional titles. It's jobs that are pretty much fresh, pretty much they've not been completely fleshed out yet. So the companies themselves are still figuring them out. But that's an advantage for people, because if they've not figured it out yet and you're just there and you're going to apply and you show them like, listen, I'm the first here. I'm ready to grow with this job, grow with this company. Well, it's going to be more than easy. Right, well, easier anyway to get these type of jobs. But whether people are looking at these or not remains to be seen. But definitely, if you just go online and look for job boards that are advertising jobs that have an AI scope, then you'll definitely be able to find some and start reading through the specifications to find out which suit you, which ones suit you, because they're out there. 1000% they're out there, but it's more than likely that people are actually applying for jobs that are on traditional job boards. So there's where the shift in thinking needs to be. But let's continue to see if there's anything else we can glean from this.
Speaking of a tough job market, do you have any thoughts on the recent layoffs from companies like Meta and Oracle?
So this is really interesting what's happening. Big banks, they made a bank in the last quarter. In January 2026, they said AI is not going to affect your job market. And by April, they announced 10,000 layoffs, most of the big banks. And what's happening is we are living in an inflection point after Claude Opus 4.5. Now Claude Opus 4.7 is there. That inflection point is so big that like most of the engineers I know in Silicon Valley, including Spotify, you talk about in your videos, that they haven't been doing code with hand for the last 4 months, like even 5 months now. Since November to now, like no one is coding with hand. They're using Claude Code or agentic terminals to code. So because of that, I think the productivity has skyrocketed, and engineers with who have nailed down their syntax abilities, like TypeScript. Like we have become very language agnostic. Think about an engineer who just learned Python. They know how to reverse his list, or they know a basic for loop. Or think about an engineer who did the same in TypeScript or web development or changing a button, who spent years on perfecting that skill. That's completely gone. So the core skill now, which is more important, is engineering, scaling big systems, scaling from 1,000 users to 10,000 users. So your system is running on cloud platforms or bare metal. These questions are more important than before. So people who do not have enough experience with like scaling, cloud engineering are struggling the most. Because when I went to college, even 2016, 2020, scaling and system design and these intensive systems were not even introduced. But now colleges are being introduced. So people who have like older college skills but did not get the right work experience now are struggling the most. So that's why like people need to like nail down their system development, like system design skills way more than coding skills. That's what I
Yeah.
think. What are your thoughts?
No, I 100% agree. I think as AI basically makes knowing syntax and knowing leak code easy, medium, hard more obsolete, it becomes more and more important to know the big picture, know how components fit together. Because you can write, any AI can reverse a linked list or balance the binary tree. But I feel like sometimes if you don't prompt right or if you don't like know actually the system that you're building, you will end up with a solution that technically works for one use case, but then completely falls apart as you scale or as you add more components in.
100%.
You mentioned that you specifically were looking for startups to join, right? Do you think that startups adopt AI quicker than big companies, or was there a particular reason why you really want to join a startup?
First of all, I'm working on a very small startup. It's like a seed. They have just raised a seed round. So startups work differently, as if like they don't have much bureaucracy, first of all. And other reason is that they use the latest greatest tools that I wanted to try. For example, I will give an example. Like Linear, we use not Atlassian. It's a new product I'm getting to try. Superhuman, we use not Gmail or Outlook. So we use Plot Code, not VS Code. So all these experiences and getting people to know what are these latest greatest tools doing and are they worth trying. This is not just an experience to like work for a smaller company, but also to try different tools and how they work and how they integrate, and to figure out AI is actually adding value to our lives or not. So for example, like in our startup, like we have installed a OpenClaw instance.
Oh.
We're running an OpenClaw instance. It was before OpenClaw, now it's Hermes. So with Hermes, like we can ask Hermes, give me access to this GitHub repo. I don't have access. I just joined. I'll just ask to that AI chatbot. It'll give me access. So that OpenClaw Mac Mini is really powerful, and I'm able to get use of it. So trying that Mac Mini, setting up that Mac Mini, which we read on Twitter, and actually implementing for your startup is really fun.
Nice.
You would never get that experience in any big tech.
Yeah, it's the permissions hard thing.
That's really interesting, basically, because what he's... It's really interesting because basically what he's explaining here is you just essentially need to know how these systems or these applications you're using, you need to know how they work. You need to get your hands dirty on as much AI tools as possible. It doesn't have to be AI tools, just systems, right? And even if you don't, you could essentially just ask AI to maybe explain it simply for you to understand. Because like the lady also agreed with him, is that he was saying that it's very important to understand system design skills as opposed to, you know, like the coding bit. And then she actually agreed, you know, and said that you need to understand the bigger picture. You need to understand how they all fit in and how they all connect. So basically what they're saying, for those that maybe didn't connect the dots, is that try to find out all the new technologies that are being used nowadays. For example, like they said, they don't use Gmail and Outlook. They use, was it Super something? I forgot what he called it. Basically, right? Supercomputer or something like that. I'm gonna have to go check that out ourselves, basically. But if you are able to get your hands on these and use them, which I'm pretty sure because they're quite easily accessible, use them, figure out the features of each of them, you know, which one is better for a different task, which one has weaknesses if you're trying to do a certain task. If you understand them well, you will know which one to use for specific tasks. So you just start replacing those that are not providing you with solutions that are, you know, fast, efficient. It's essentially what I got from that. Essentially, what I got from that dialogue there was that make sure you learn all these different things and try them so that you know which one is best to use for a specific task. Very interesting.
I'm also just curious. So you mentioned like OpenClaw. I know it's a really, really powerful tool, but also you have to be very cautious about security. How does your startup make it so someone random can't like hack your security credentials or things like that?
Security is a big concern, you're right. But for that, we using NemoClaw. We use NemoClaw because that was with guardrails from OpenClaw, and with Hermes, we tried to add as many guardrails as possible. For example, it never gives admin access by default. It only gives read-only access. It can onboard you pretty much to 90%, but the remaining 10% we have to do through humans. So it's a pros and cons. If we give like 100% access to GitHub to a new hire, they can literally like nuke our GitHub repos. So you cannot trust, right? So that's how we prevent.
Yeah, guardrails are so important. I feel
100%.
like there's definitely been like the horror stories of like some AI deleting someone's like production database, or like the meta head of some department that like used OpenClaw and accidentally started deleting all her emails.
Yeah, that
Crazy.
was wild. That was wild.
Yeah, so definitely use AI, but guardrails, guardrails, guardrails.
100%. Like, I mean, there are so many startups too, including Context AI, Vercel. Like, they became victim of like security issues.
Yeah. That wasn't even their fault. It's actually wasn't it like they were using a company who got SOC 2 certified using Dell?
Yeah.
We know how that went.
100%.
And then someone downloaded Roblox cheat codes onto their corp laptop, so that's how it got hacked.
Oh my god.
So not only do you have to protect your own, you also have to be very cautious of the software that you're using.
100%. So the point I was trying to make is that all happened through social engineering. So like you can get an employee, like trigger them in one way, and that can really happen. So for example, today it happened. Someone from a new number tells me that, hi, I'm your CEO with name. I am like name of my CEO. It felt very real. And then I showed this number to my CEO. Is this your number? And he said no. So social engineering is the way people can trick you.
Oh yeah, 100%. And especially I know like, with the ability to clone voices and to spoof stuff, it's so much harder to actually tell if someone is who they say they are online.
100%.
What's it do?
What we got from there was, which is always something we always do, is think about something that can be built, right, from the issues and the weaknesses and the the weaknesses from the systems being used. So it sounds as though there needs to be like a app that needs to be built that is a all-encompassing anti-hack app, right? That it needs to take into consideration apps like they've explained, all these social apps, well, not just social apps basically, but tech apps that you use for your emails, you use for infrastructure, all these complex applications, and then build I guess you have to call it a cybersecurity, right? An all-encompassing cybersecurity app that will always ensure certain guardrails are in place. So even if somebody was to be given logins, they will have to authenticate. So that's what came up to mind when we were thinking about that discussion there. That dialogue was, someone needs to essentially look into building that app, that all-encompassing app, to protect many applications being used. Because we say this because there's going to be like a standard way or a standard method in which people use to try to hack things. So they'll always try this first. Okay, we need to try this loop to see if there's any, and then next one, let's now try this loop, right? Let's try this area. They'll work chronologically to see if there are any gaps within a system. So they just go, okay, 1, okay, let's move to the next one, 2, the next one 3, and this may be out there already, but with the tools at our disposal, that you can build apps in minutes using AI. Well, AI is probably the best tool to figure out or to try to imitate a hacker. So when you try to imitate a hacker to find out, okay, which areas will they try to penetrate within a system, because they know that this is where people are usually messing up. This is where people are usually are usually not being careful. Well, you could build an app that is always going to follow that procedure. Okay, go here first and figure out how they will try to do it and protect the system from all different methods they're going to try to use to hack it. Now move to the second one, because they'll move to the second one. Okay, they're now going to want to attack this area. Ensure you build guardrails again there to protect every single method they try to use to breach the system, and so on and so forth. So that'll be interesting. Again, it will be great for us to actually show you the stuff that we're building, the different apps we're building, that we just find out. We think about problems people are facing in this world, and we just communicate with different AI tools, which will help us build all sorts of, help us develop anyway, all sorts of ideas, all sorts of product visions, all sorts of business plans that we then try to carry into base 44s or Replit type applications in order to build something that will be beneficial for operations carried out by human beings within the real world. So if we could do one of those videos, that'd be absolutely great. But yeah, that was a great back and forth there, and something we can learn.
Rapid fire questions
in that
now. Just say the first thing that comes to your mind: Microsoft or HydroDB.
Oh. I live in present, so HydroDB.
Leak code or real world projects?
Real world projects.
Will AI replace engineers? Yes or no?
Work with them. Oh. Yes.
No.
No, okay. One skill
Yes.
every developer should learn in 2026.
System design.
100% agree. Most overrated thing in tech right now?
Salary.
Most underrated thing in tech right now?
Learning.
High salary or fast learning early career? Because of both.
I mean, you need both, but I think it depends, right? Like, if you want to pay your debt, if you let's say you had a college debt, you would choose high salary. If you don't have a college debt, then you will choose a high learning team.
I see.
So it depends.
Depends. Got
Just
it.
say high salary.
Job hopping or staying long term?
Job hopping. I mean, think about it. We live in a world that even OpenAI co-founders were not were not loyal to their own startup. They found, they left it. XAI, they founded XAI and they left it.
Yeah.
So if co-founders are not loyal to their startups, how can an employee be loyal to the company they work to? It's
That's
such a
good point.
competitive
That's a good point.
market.
Yeah. Content creation or coding?
Content creation.
Yeah.
Devrel. What's one mistake 90% of new grads make?
That would be not increasing the surface area of luck, just hiding in their room and applying online. I think going out there, meeting people is the biggest way they can be public. Plus having Twitter and LinkedIn. People who are not on Twitter, they are actually facing the bigger loss of not being exposed to a job market which is only for Twitter users. Same with LinkedIn, same with Substack, same with Discord. I know people who found their jobs on Discord, Twitter, and LinkedIn. You gotta be on all three platforms in the right communities at the right time.
I've never gotten my job just cold applying online, so totally feel like it's
But there's also an argument to be made for those that are active at actually building apps, right? So if they were to try to enter a job market, well, this is the best ever time to show somebody what you do, right? Even if you are isolated by yourself. What you shouldn't be doing though is not using platforms like YouTube to find out about stuff. So these guys mentioned Discord, LinkedIn and so forth, but or Twitter, but there's so many things that you'll be able to find out, and then you can start applying them within. You can start applying the stuff you've learned and using them to build stuff using AI tools. And then once you've built these apps, if you were to apply for a job, you tell them, well, yep, this is the stuff that I've been doing in my spare time. I've built an app for this. I've built an app for that. It's been teaching me, how in terms of working within a systemized structural environment where usually I'm kind of all over the place, but working with AI, always has kind of given me a structure. So every single time I do start something, I know that I have got to start with a product division, which then kind of is followed by a business plan, right? And then you then get a prototype, right? Apply that prototype, test it within a small market. These type of things is something that an employer will hear and think, okay, wow, this is a good way of working. And the more you do this, the more you start realizing that every time you do interact with AI, this is what it's giving you. It's essentially helping you structure the way you work. Or you start learning that, okay, this is what needs to be in place when I'm putting together an idea or putting together a proposition. This is stuff that needs to be in place. If I were to ever present it to somebody, they need to know, like what the scope of the business is, of the idea that I'm creating it. What's the scope of it, right? Like, give me the pros and cons, the opportunities and the threats, which is essentially in general, SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, basically. But give me all that information, right? Because they'll know that, okay, you did all this stuff, which allowed you to see where holes could be, to see that have you done, full analysis on where things could go wrong. So that's one thing we should say. If you're not somebody that's personable or like being, because we are getting to a stage where a lot of people are becoming isolated, but what they can't do is being isolated, not being on these platforms like these people have said, but also not building anything, because the tools are there. You can't just be applying for a job now and not have any evidence of you getting your hands dirty. That's you're essentially just asking not to be hired.
Just be a good engineer, also having those access to the communities.
100%. So 2 things would be like IRL, in-person events, and number 2 would be online present at the right places.
And finally, if you were starting from scratch today, what is the first thing you would do?
I would go to tech events and see what's the hottest discussion happening right now. For example, in Silicon Valley, the hottest discussion right now is continuous learning by AI agents. Like, I went to today a store called Ando Market. That store is completely run by AI.
Oh.
The biggest problem in that store is it doesn't learn as you go because it doesn't have contextual memory. This is a very important research problem. A lot of people are working on it. I would work on that or try to get my experience in one of the hottest problems and try to build my experience and work for startups doing that and show my passion.
And one final question, is coding worth it in 2026?
Coding, I think learning to code is still worth it.
Yeah, but not by itself.
But just learning to code is 100% not
Yeah,
worth it.
yeah.
Coding is pretty much solved, but still we have to learn like it's 2015. You have to learn from scratch. You still need to know the math. You still need to know how to calculate 2 times 3, even though you have calculator. You can use a calculator, but learn like you do not have a calculator. So I think more you learn like it's 2015, you don't have AI, and work like you have AI when he was here.
So shout out to him. Cool. Thank you so much for your words of insight and wisdom. This was amazing. We learned so much from you. If you have any as well, thanks for watching and see you next one.
Thank you.
Yay.
What we also that we learned from this insightful interview is looking into systems design is something that's really important. I think something that we do, from being honest, interface, essentially. So how human beings will interact and engage with a system, from the front end, right? So the interface, but we'll stick to the labeling he gave it, which was systems design. Is definitely something we're going to be looking at more, especially coming from someone that is an engineer, basically, right? That's now moved into a DevRel role. System design is something we picked up, and it's something that we'll tell people is that in this day and age where it is definitely hard to find jobs due to the fact that AI is taking over a lot of job roles, what you want to do to combat that is actually start using that exact thing, which is AI. Start using AI to build apps. Start using AI, like start getting your hands dirty. Start having AI help you structure your, not just your learning, but your thinking, right? Because if you start working with AI is naturally going to work in an environment that is known as like a, agile / like a Prince 2 environment. So it's going to want to structure things. If you were to tell it as well, if you were to give it that information, that can you please work as in we are working for a top firm, and let's slowly but surely flesh this idea out, right? And put in the I want to call it structural, like, departments that a big company would require, right? Put in those guardrails to ensure that we don't digress, right? We follow a structured pattern. If you tell it to do that, it's going to help you. It's essentially going to give you an agile way of learning. It's going to give you an agile way of learning, basically. And the more you do it, like the more you keep doing that, you're going to become fixated on that way of carrying out a job. And this is how you could say the traditional companies, traditional organizations, like workplaces, this is how they operate. But do we believe this is how it's going to stay? Maybe not. Maybe AI is going to come up with a brand new, more efficient and concise way, right, of working. And that's because AI will take care of all this stuff for you. All you need to do now is essentially be the connector between a system and the human being. Because not everybody's going to know how to use AI, how to prompt AI, right? Which specific things need to be in place. So the fact, if you have those skill sets to be able to know, okay, this needs to be used, instead of using Gmail, we're going to use, what do you call it, supercomputer? I don't know what they called it. We're going to use that, because it's got natural AI features that's going to help us question, it's going to help us iterate, it's going to help us improve, ensuring that whatever we built is built to the most, optimum level. And that's probably the takeaway that we'll give there. But this is a great interview, and guys, if you want to go check this out, this video was by it's on the channel called Maddie Zhang. So Maddie spelled with a Y, and then Zhang, Zhang, and Singh in USA. So we're guessing Singh is the gentleman. And that's spelt with a H, Sing with a H, Sing in USA. So if you type in either of their YouTube channels, you'll be able to find this video titled "Why an ex-Microsoft Engineer Got 0 Offers After 200 Applications." We will leave you with that, and this is the FinTech Report, and we shall most importantly catch you on the next one.